Just one. So in project time management, we have 7 processes. In scope management, we have seen 6 processes. In project time management, we have 7 processes. The first one is plan schedule management. As I told, in every knowledge area, you have this planning. We saw plan scope management, and similarly here we have plan schedule management. On the same lines, you have plan cost management, plan quality management. Everywhere you have this process. And then define activities. See, time management is all about how you plan time for your project. How do you make sure that you finish your project within the schedule or time? So, in order to finish your project in time, first you have to plan your project, or you have to see how much time it will take for your project to complete. It can be 6 months. When I say time, it's a schedule. 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 1 year, 2 years. So how much time basically you take to complete a project? If you want to know that, first you have to define the activities. When I say define activities, you remember that in scope management, we have divided the work, decomposed the work into a level called work package. So this particular work package will be further divided now to an activity level. For example, there is a work package called, say, producing a weekly report. It's a work package. So now, for this weekly report, what are the activities we do? We'll further break down into that. Okay, so that is called defining activities. Once the activities are defined, then you have to sequence these activities. Activity 1, activity 2, activity 3. After activity 3, it may not be activity 4 sometimes. It can be activity 5, or it can be activity 9. So now you have to arrange them in a sequence. So to produce a deliverable, what is the sequence? For example, you are constructing a house. What is the first activity? Foundation. Then you raise a superstructure, activity 2. Then you do the plastering. So you have to sequence the activities. Then you will estimate activity resources for each activity. In the sense, to do an activity, what resources are required? Remember, it's not only the human resources. The type of resources. It can be material, equipment, supplies. Anything is a resource, including human resources. So you will estimate, for this activity, how many resources I have. You have to estimate. For this activity, so many people are required. For this activity, so much material is required. So you will estimate for each activity how many resources are required. And remember, you have to do that. You have to do that to calculate the duration. For example, you have only 7 resources in your team, and you don't have any tools, no equipment, everything is manual. Then the time that takes will be more when compared to some equipment is available, some tools are available, and more number of people are required. The same activity may take less number of time if you have 20 people, when the resources are more. So, depending upon the resources, your duration will change. If you have 30 people, duration will be different. If you have 2 people, duration will be different. So, first you find out how many resources and what type of resources you have, and then estimate activity duration. Based on the resources available, now you have to calculate the duration. As I told, if you have 30 people, the duration is different. If you have 5 people, the duration is different. So you have to estimate for each activity. Suppose you are conducting an event called marriage, that you have taken it up as a project. So in marriage there are various activities that will happen. Even arranging chairs is an activity, right? So you have to estimate how much time it will take to arrange the chairs, how much time it will take to do this activity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you do the estimation of the duration, how much the activity will take. Then you develop the schedule. Develop schedule is summing up all the activity durations, and finally you will develop the schedule. Assume that you have 10 activities in the project. Each activity takes different times. When you sum up all the durations, activity 1, 1 hour, activity 2, 6 hours, activity 3, 9 hours. So when you sum up all the durations, you will finally develop the schedule. And then control schedule. Control schedule is when you do the project, you will establish the schedule baseline, like your schedule of the project, say 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, you will establish the schedule. Or by this time I am supposed to complete this, by this time I have to supposed to complete this. So according to that, you have to control the project. On day 50, you plan to complete this work. So you have to check whether you are ahead the schedule, behind the schedule, or on schedule. If you are not, you have to control the schedule. You have to make sure that you are going to complete the project activities as per the established schedule baseline. I told there will be 3 types of baseline: scope baseline, schedule baseline, and cost baseline. They are nothing but what you have planned related to the scope to do. Schedule baseline is the time when you want to complete it. Cost baseline is basically the budget what you have agreed, against which always you do the management. You try to make sure that you are meeting the baselines. So similarly here also pertaining to schedule, you have to control the schedule.
So when you say plan schedule management, what does it mean?
Sorry?
When you say plan schedule management, so how do you do that?
I will come to that. Each process we'll see now. Then you will be having a fair bit of idea. Yeah.
Okay.
So now we'll see project time management introduction. The first process what I told is plan schedule management. Basically, plan schedule management will produce an output called schedule management plan. As I told, every knowledge area will produce the plan, like scope management plan, schedule management plan, time management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan. So here also you will be producing schedule management plan, and the process which will produce this schedule management plan is plan schedule management. So in plan schedule management, basically what do you do? Here you will establish the policies, procedures, documentation for planning your project schedule. Who will plan the project schedule? What type of methodology you use in plan in while you are scheduling, when you are planning your scheduling? Managing the project schedule, executing the project as per the project schedule, controlling the project schedule. So how do you do that? You have to plan upfront. That's what you do in plan schedule management. Okay. Now, the project time management, as I told that it will produce a plan called schedule management plan, and it has the details and how the time management process will be done. Who will now you know the 7 process, right? The first one is plan schedule management. Then define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity resources, estimate activity durations, develop schedule, control schedule. Everything should be planned upfront. How do you define the activities? To what level you will develop the activities like? How do you sequence? What type of tools you use in here? Everything it has to be planned upfront. Okay. Just jumping into the main part of time management. Let us go back to the process. As I told, there are 7 processes. You have to remember this. You have to by heart this. I am giving you 1 minute time. Just by heart these names. Okay. So can anyone tell all the 7 process we have in
It's a plan, schedule management, define, sequence define and sequence activities, estimate activities, resource and duration,
okay?
develop schedule and control schedule.
Excellent. So plan schedule management, define activities. Once you define the activities, you have to arrange them in a sequence. It's called sequence activities. Estimate activity resources, estimate activity durations, develop schedule and control schedule. So these are the 7 processes you have in time management. So if you see this screen, what have been shown, this is how the scheduling is done. This is from Microsoft Project Plan. This is one of the tools that is used for planning your project. So if you see on the left side, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are the numbers, the number of activities what you are doing, some sequences, some number has been given, and then the task name, the activity level, no, on the if you see, there's the task names and how much time each activity will take. If you see the extreme right side, so that has been estimated 3 days, 5 days, 6 days. So once you sum up all these activities, the schedules of all these activities, you will develop the schedule. So now let us see the first process, plan schedule management. Plan schedule management, as I told you, you will upfront plan schedule for your project. The policies related to managing the schedule or controlling the schedule, developing the schedule, who will do that? When you will do that? What type of tools you use? You have to plan. Are you going to use Microsoft Project Plan? Are you going to use Oracle Primavera? There are different tools, no, you require to plan your project or to execute your schedule management, to control your schedule. There are different tools what you use. Who will do that? At what time you do that? Everything you have to plan upfront. What type of methodology you use? There are certain methodologies called critical path method, critical chain method, different types of methodologies you have. Everything you will plan upfront. And level of accuracy you will plan upfront. In the schedule management plan, you will develop the level of accuracy. Level of accuracy means plus or minus 1% delay. I agree. Plus or minus 5% delay. I will agree. What is the level of accuracy you are looking at? For some people, plus or minus say 1 or 2 minutes delay is fine. For some people, even they don't tolerate that. So, what is the level of accuracy you are expecting in the project? Units of measure, like staff hours, staff days, weeks. How do you calculate? How are you going to do the project management related to the schedule? Is it in hours? If the project is say 10 years schedule, there is no logic in calculating in hours. Better you do it in days or weeks. If your project is very short stint, then you have to do it in hours. So these things you will plan upfront. No, how are you going to? Yeah, when are you going to check that your project is behind the schedule or ahead the schedule? Is it on a weekly basis, or every 1 hour you go and check? Every 1 month you go and check whether you are ahead or behind? At what point in time are you going to do that? Put it in the plan. Remember, all these plans are very much useful to execute the activities pertaining to that knowledge area. So thresholds. As a project manager, in the schedule management plan, you will plan all these things. Like as a project manager, at what point in time you will poke your nose, you will pitch in to control the schedule of the project. Threshold. If there is a delay of 5 days, then I will go and control. If there is a delay of 5 minutes, then I will go and control. So when a project manager should go and control the performance of the team. Reporting. What type of reports you send related to schedule? Huh? So what format? The frequency of reporting related to the schedule. All these things you have to plan upfront. If you don't plan upfront, what happens? You will not send reports in time. Sometimes you will send, sometimes you don't send. You don't know at what point in time you have to pitch in. See, sometimes a project may be delayed by a few hours. You decide that if a project is delayed by a few hours, let it go. I'm not worried. If a project is delayed by days, you feel that it's okay. It's a very big project. Even if it is delayed by days, I'm not worried. If the project is delayed by weeks, then you may intervene and you may control the situation. So how your team members know, your project sponsor will know, or your customer will know, when are you going to pitch in? Is it when there is a delay in hours, are you going to control it? Or if there is delay in weeks, are you going to control it? How the customer will know? You have to plan upfront. You will decide and you will put it in the plan. Even if you are on leave, if someone sees the plan, in your place someone is doing the project. The moment he sees the plan, he should know when he should send a report. He should know when he should intervene and control the situation. He should know what type of tools he should use related to scheduling. He should know how they are measuring the project. If you don't plan, what happens? Suppose you resign the company, or because of some situation you moved out of the project and a new project manager has come in. So how will you know all these things? Somewhere in the middle. How are they measuring? Are they measuring the project in days, hours, seconds, minutes, weeks, months? What tools they are using? What scheduling methodologies are they using? The new project manager will not know all these things. He has to ask someone, hey, what tools are you using? Are you using MPP or Oracle Primavera? When do you send weekly report related to the schedule? How do you measure? When do you measure? So, to avoid such gaps, you have to plan the project upfront. So, did I answer your question? So someone asked what is the plan scope management. Sorry, I didn't see the name who asked. Ganga, I think Ganga.
No, it was me, Manish.
Okay, did I answer your question, Manish?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So for planning your project, to develop this scope management plan, primarily what are the inputs you require? As is like any other process, we'll see what tools and techniques we use and what outputs you produce. The inputs what you require is the project management plan. The project management plan contains the plans of other knowledge areas. At the same time, I told it contains 3 baselines. What are the 3 baselines? Scope baseline, schedule baseline or time baseline or cost baseline. So 3 baselines you have. If you want to develop the schedule, first you should know what is the scope you are doing the project. If you are constructing 1 kilometer of the road, the schedule is different. If you are constructing 50 kilometers road, schedule is different. So without knowing the scope, what is the work you are going to do in the project, it's difficult for you to do the estimation of the schedule. So scope baseline is the most important document in the project management plan when it comes to scheduling. In scope baseline, what are the ingredients of scope baseline we discussed? Project scope statement, WBS and WBS dictionary. Project scope statement again contains 6 ingredients. Anyone can tell what are the ingredients of project scope statement? Anyone can recall? So everyone is looking into the pages back. So product scope description, you'll have deliverables, you have acceptance criteria, you have out of scope, you have assumptions, you will have constraints, you will have. These are the things what you have in project scope statement. So this project scope statement will be very handy for you in order to plan your schedule. So this project scope statement is in scope baseline and this scope baseline is in project management plan. That is the reason you require a input called project management plan. And then the project charter. Project charter, it contains the high level outline schedule of the project. That will help to the extent in order to understand your schedule planning or schedule management. It will have the milestones which you have identified in the project. So project charter is a document which will help. And EF and OPA. Organization culture, the tools what that are available, resource availability and skills, what softwares you have in your company, EF. And OPS, no, the assets related to the process, like your historical information. Same schedule management plan you have done for a similar project earlier in your previous project, templates, all these things you will have. And in order to plan your scope management, what do you need? Expert judgment, the subject matter expertise you require. And you will use analytical techniques. Analytical techniques means what? Different options you will analyze, like what tools you have, what type of different methodologies you have. You have to analyze all these things, then only you will plan, right? There may be different types of scheduling methodologies. Say 6 types of scheduling methodologies are there. Which methodology are you going to use it? You have to analyze. What tools are you going to use? What approaches, like estimating approaches, are you going to use? What formats are you going to use? What type of softwares are you going to use? You have to analyze. And it's always good, as I told, when you are planning, you conduct the meetings. You take inputs from all the team members and you develop the schedule management plan. In the meetings, the stakeholders could be project manager, project sponsor, selected project team members, selected stakeholders, anyone who has the responsibility for schedule planning or execution. You pull them in. Take everyone's input. Ask for their inputs, like what type of tools are you going to use, who is going to do what, everything you plan. So out of this activity, what is the output you get? Schedule management plan. As I told, out of 10 knowledge areas, 9 knowledge areas will produce 9 plans. And if you can recall the previous scope management, it produced scope management plan, and now this time management will produce schedule management plan. So schedule management plan is basically the plan that establishes the criteria and the activities for developing, monitoring and controlling the schedule. This can be formal or informal, very detailed, broadly framed. Based upon the needs of the project, you can detail this schedule management plan. So what basically this schedule management plan will contain? It will tell what tools are you going to use, what methodology are you going to use. For example, critical path methodology, critical chain methodology. For the time being, you just remember the names. Subsequently, we'll see what is critical path method, what is critical chain method in detail. So what type of methodologies are you going to use? The scheduling model. A schedule model is nothing but which contains a methodology or a scheduling tool basically in the project, and it will contain how are you going to work on the schedule management, the entire model you are going to work on the project. And the level of accuracy it will have. As I told, when I say level of the accuracy, it is an acceptable range used in determining realistic activity durations is specified and may include an amount for contingencies. Remember, whenever you plan for an activity, you have to add some buffer, reserves to that. That's called related to the risk. If something happens, so if you are constructing, say, foundation, if it rains, so add some buffer. Say, we always do that. You know that a particular activity will take 5 hours, but will you add some buffer, some reserve to that? 5 hours, okay. Say 6 hours to him, don't say 5 hours. 1 hour will take it as a contingency. Contingency is when you are working on something, if there is some risk, the reserve, what you have reserved for this risk is called contingency. Okay. You know that you will take 2 hours to travel from home to office. When your manager calls, you say, boss, I will take 2.5 hours. You know that the journey will take 2 hours. Why did you add that half an hour? As a contingency on a safe side. Okay. Let us add some buffer. So for each activity, how much contingency or reserve you will be allowing? You can put it in the schedule management plan. As I told you, the units of measure you can put it. Staff hours, staff days. Are you going to measure in weeks? Are you going to measure in liters, tons, kilometers? What actually, how actually you are going to measure it? Okay, so you will have all this information. thresholds. When I say threshold, variance thresholds for monitoring schedule performance. Okay, what is the agreed upon time amount of variation will be allowed before some action needs to be taken? 5 minutes delay, I'm okay. So that's what you will plan upfront. When are you going to pitch in and when are you going to control the situation? Performance measurement. How frequently you will measure the performance related to the schedule? Which techniques are you going to use to measure? There are certain techniques which we will be learning later. Your reports, templates, everything will be there in schedule management. So out of the 7 processes we have done with the schedule management plan, now we are working on the define activities. Define activities is basically the list of actions that would accomplish a deliverable. What actions are you going to do? If you want to produce a work package called foundation of the house, or if you are going to produce a work package called a website, what actions are you going to do? So that particular work package you will further divide into smaller activities. If you see this diagram, there is a main deliverable called website, and you have divided that website, that particular thing, into WBS, work breakdown structure, into control accounts level. I told you that the work package at the top level where you will monitor, you will manage, you will fund, you will report is called the control accounts level, and below this control accounts level you'll have these work packages. The lowest level of the WBS are called work packages. Now you will take each work package and you will further divide into smaller activities. To produce that work package, what actions I have to do? You will divide. So remember, work package is a noun, a thing, like a deliverable. Work package is always a noun, whereas activities are verbs. Verb is action. So to produce that work package, what actions are you going to do? You will further divide your work package into finer detail. Right? So this is called defining the activities. So now let us see, to define the activities, what inputs you require. You require schedule management plan. Why you require schedule management plan? It will tell the level of detail that has to be prescribed to manage your work. So to what level are you going to divide this work package? You will decide in the schedule management plan. And of course, you need the scope. Where do you find the scope? The work, what are you going to do in the project? If someone doesn't tell you what the work you have to divide, how can you divide it? So the scope baseline you may require. Scope baseline contains project scope statement, WBS and WBS dictionary. Project scope statement contains the detail level of your scope. You require that EF and OPA. And remember, I told the work package will be divided into finer entities, the actions. Where do you have the work package? In the scope baseline. Because scope baseline contains project scope statement, WBS and WBS dictionary. WBS contains these work packages. So you need the scope baseline. You need the EF and OPA. Organization culture. Depending upon the organization culture, you will plan. Some organizations are very tolerant, very lenient very patient. Even if the project is delayed by 6 months also, they don't say anything. In such projects, your schedule management will be different. Your plan will be different. In some projects, even if the project is delayed by 1 second, you'll be fired. Then your planning will be different. So EFs, the culture of the organization is very important. The tolerance levels of the organization is very important. Some organizations will tolerate huge delays in the project also. They take it very light. Some people, if you go late to the meeting even by 1 hour, your manager may not say anything. Some managers, if you are delayed by 1 second, you will not be allowed into the meeting. So the tolerance levels are different. You have to understand the environmental factors, how it's existing in your organization, and OPA obviously, the world plans, what you have done earlier, how they have defined the activities, similar projects, lessons learned, templates, you can take it. So what are the tools and techniques we use? In WBS, create WBS, we used a technique called decomposition. Decomposition is nothing but dividing. Here the work package you are dividing into finer activities. So you will subdivide the project scope and deliverables into smaller, more manageable parts called activities. So basically, if you want to understand what is an activity, activities represent the effort needed to complete a work package. What effort is required in order to produce that particular work package? Okay. And there is one more activity called technique called rolling wave planning. Rolling wave planning is, I told you yesterday, what is rolling wave planning? Rolling wave planning is, you will plan the nearest work package in detail. So whatever the work you are going to do in the near term is planned in detail, while the work in the future is planned at a higher level. For example, you are constructing a house. Let us go back to that example. The initial activity what you are going to do is laying the foundation. So there is a deliverable work package called foundation. You will plan foundation activity in detail. First you will divide the work package called foundation, and you will list out what actions you are going to do. To lay the foundation, what do you need? You have to dig the pit. You have to dig the soil. Then you have to raise the foundation. That you will plan in detail. You don't plan in detail about what type of paint, when are you going to do that, related to painting. Painting is much more later activity which will happen. It will not happen now. So the nearest thing you will plan in detail, and which are you going to do later in the future, okay, you will put it at a very high level. You don't plan in detail. That is called rolling wave planning, and this is also called as progressive elaboration. Remember, whenever there is an alternative name, you have to remember both the names. If there are 3 names, you have to remember all the 3 names. In the examination, they can use any terminology. So you may feel that you are not familiar with this term, but actually you know that. It's basically like, a synonym sort of thing. So rolling wave planning is a form of progressive elaboration. Progressive elaboration. So what is progressive elaboration? One minute. So what is progressive elaboration? Sorry, you have to excuse me. I had a sore throat. My throat is not okay. I'm not keeping well. 1 minute. That's what Funny is also concerned. Thank you, Funny. So the other name for this rolling wave planning, or it's a form of progressive elaboration. What do you mean by progressive elaboration? You will be elaborating progressively. This particular term is called progressive elaboration. Progressive elaboration. I have put it in the chat, everyone can see that. So it is a form of progressive elaboration. And then expert judgment. In order to define the activities, obviously you need some expertise, to do that. One should know how to break down a particular work package into smaller entities. That is called expert judgment. What output you get? List of all your activities. Activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, activity 4, activity 5. List of all these activities. And activity attributes also it should have. When I say activity 1, what is this activity 1? Description of this. You remember WBS dictionary? Related to the work package, you will describe this particular work package in detail. Similarly, related to the activity, you put all the details. That is called activity attribute. It's like a biodata. For marriage, we all prepare our biodata. Everything fake. Your complexion is fake. Your salary is fake. Your height is fake. Your weight is fake. Everything is a fake. But here it's biodata of this activity should be very precise. Every activity should be given some ID. Activity 1.1, activity 1.1.1, activity 1.2, activity 6.7. It is very difficult for you to address if you give an ID to an activity. Okay, and you may have description of that activity. Activity 1, you can have a description. And every activity, before and after, you will have some other activity. Before this activity, you will have a predecessor and a successor. Predecessor is, before this activity, what are you going to do? Suppose assume that there is an activity called testing. Before testing, an activity called testing, before that, there is something which you will do. That is predecessor. After testing, you will have something you will do. That is successor. So every activity, so for each activity, you decide who is the predecessor, who is the successor. Logical relationship. Is there a relationship between this activity and other activity? Remember, there will be a relationship. Without designing or without coding, you cannot test. 1 minute. Yeah, sorry. So attribute is description of each activity. You can put it in detail. So I will show you the template for this activity attributes. Let us see how it looks like. This is activity attribute. You'll have the project title, date, prepared, ID of each activity, and the activity description of the work, predecessors, relationship. When I say relationship, we'll see start to start. We have different types of logical relationships, which we'll see later. Lead or lag. Lead or lag is certain activities you have to wait some time for the next activity to be started. If you want to construct the walls of the house, you should wait after foundation. You have to wait for 1 week or 10 days or 1 month. That is called the waiting time. Certain activities you can start parallelly. If the activity A will go on, say activity A is 6 days. Activity B, parallelly you can start on 4th day itself. Suppose you have started designing. You are designing the software. The moment the design is ready, you can start testing after 3 days or 4 days. You need not wait for the entire designing to be finished. Parallelly you can start. Someone has finished some part of the design, you test it. You need not wait for the entire design to be completed. So how early you can start an activity parallelly with some other activity, that's called lead or lag, successor for this activity, relationship, number of resources required for this activity. When I say resources, I told it can be material, it can be human resources, it can be equipment, anything is a resource. Skill requirements for this activity, other required resources, type of effort, how much time is required for this activity. You may not have at this now itself, but you will get this template created. You will give the activity ID. Later, when you are doing other process, other activities, then you will go and update this record. You will know later that how much time it will take. Now, because we never know how much time it will take at this moment. You will not know. You will only know at a later stage. Now you are only listing out the activities. So first you prepare this empty template. As and when you get the information, you come and update the document. Location of performance, this particular activity, where it is done, date, by which date you are going to complete it, assumptions related to this activity, all these things you will have in activity attribute. Remember, this is for one activity. If there are 10,000 activity, you need to fill this document 10,000 times for each activity. So this is activity attribute, and you may have a milestone list. Milestone list, remember, it changes from project to project. That is left to the discretion of the project manager and the project team. What is a milestone in my project? So it is a significant point or event in a project. You should decide in the schedule management plan whether whether milestones are there in your project or not. For some people, they like milestones. Once we reach this stage, once we achieve this, we'll celebrate. This is the milestone. Sometimes the customer may give it in the contract. You have to list it accordingly, the milestones. These are the milestones. During milestones, you may celebrate, or you may do a retrospection, whether you are giving the right direction or not, whether you are meeting the objective of the project or not. These things you do it. Remember, if you don't meet the objective of the project, your project is a failure. For example, you are constructing a flyover. Why are you constructing a flyover? To overcome the traffic woes, the problems, traffic problems. So you constructed the flyover, but in fact the traffic problems compounded, they increased. Instead of the traffic problems reduction, it increased. Your project is a failure. You have constructed excellent, within budget, within time, best quality, but still, since your objective is not met, your project is a failure. So the milestones are the times, basically when they check whether you are going towards the objective of the project or not, whether you are meeting the objective of the project or not. That is a milestone list. I will show you the template, milestones. I will give you these templates as I promised you earlier. You have to fill. Just think of some project, what you know or where you have worked earlier, and you work. So this is a milestone document. You'll have milestone name, milestone description. You can list it like this. So this is about define activities. So what are the 7 processes we have in time management? The first one is plan schedule management. The second one is define activities. Once you define the activities, what do? Now you have to sequence them. First A, then activity C, then D, then H, then J. You have to put it in sequence. There are so many benefits you get if you put it in sequence, which we will see later. Sequence activities. Then once you do the sequencing of the activities, the next stage is estimate activity resources, estimate activity duration. You develop the schedule and control the schedule. We are done with plan schedule management and define activities. Now we will see sequence the activities. What is sequence activities? The definition of sequence activities. So sequence activities is the process of identifying and documenting relationships among the project activities. In a project, I told there will be many activities which you will be doing, and there will be some relationship. For example, after finishing foundation, then only you can raise the superstructure. Without finishing, you can't do it. But after finishing plastering, parallelly you can do painting. You need not wait for the entire plastering to be finished. One room, if you finish the plastering, you can do the painting. In the other room, they will be doing the plastering. So there are certain times where you have to finish a predecessor activity in order to start the successor activity. Sometimes you need not wait. So you will build these relationships here. And you will know the lags, the leads, how much waiting time is there, how much early I can start an activity parallelly with other activity. These things you will know if you do the sequencing. If you don't do the sequencing, estimation is also very difficult. For example, if you don't do the sequencing, what happens? You can't understand the lead and lag time. You will think for foundation of a house 10 days. For wall construction, you will mention as 9 days. 10 plus 9, 19 days, you think you have prepared the schedule. But you have forgotten about the waiting time. After it, foundation may take 10 days for the construction, but after 10 days, another 10 days you have to wait for the foundation to set, to get dried. So that 10 days is also your project time. So if you don't consider these things, you will consider that 19 days is your schedule of the project. But unfortunately, 10 days is for foundation, 10 days is the lag time, and then 9 days is the walls construction. So total 21 days. So if you don't sequence, you will not know these things. Is there any waiting time? No. So sequencing the activities is very, very important. To sequence the activity, what inputs you require? Of course, you need the schedule management plan. You need the activity list. You need activity attributes. The most important thing what you require for sequencing activities is activity list. So activity list, activity attributes, milestone list. Okay, milestone list will help you to sequence that way. Customer says, this is a milestone by which I require. This particular milestone should be achieved by September 15th. Accordingly, you will sequence. You will prioritize your activities. And you need, of course, the project scope statement will throw you a lot of information. The scope description will have, no, product scope description will have. Project scope statement. So that may affect your sequencing sometimes. Product characteristics. So the product scope description in the product scope statement, it will tell you what characteristics are important. First, prioritization, EFs and OPS. Okay, and what are the tools and techniques? PDM, very important for your examination. PDM, precedence diagram method, very, very, very important, not only for your examination, even in your real-time project. Normally, when you want to plan, you want to schedule the project, you'll be using Microsoft Project Plan. There's a software. There, this PDM will comes very handy. It's called precedence diagram method. Which will start first, which will start later. So there are four types of logical relationships. Finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, start to finish. When you take two activities, certain activities, you have to finish the predecessor activity, then only you can start the successor activity. Sometimes both the activities should be started, like one activity you should start, then only the other activity will start. So what are the different relationships you have? Very important for the examination. Finish to start. Activity B cannot start unless activity A has finished. Like you can't start construction of the house unless you finish the foundation. Activity A is foundation. You have to finish. Here the left finish is about the predecessor activity and start is the successor activity. So the successor activity cannot start until a predecessor activity has finished. Right? Start to start. Start to start is a successor activity cannot start until the predecessor activity has started. For example, you are writing a book. You have to start that activity if I have to look for grammatical mistakes. If you finish first page, then I will start looking for the grammatical errors. Proofreading, I will do it. If you don't start the book, I can never start that proofreading. So your manager will ask, have you tested the software? No, they have not designed at all. If they start design, I will start my work. If they don't start, how I can start? So activity B called testing cannot be started unless activity A has started, that is designing. So if you can't start testing till the design has started. If they finish 2% of the design, you will finish the 2% of the testing. That is start to start. Finish to finish. Finish to finish is you cannot finish the successor activity unless the predecessor is finished. Have you finished testing? No, they have not finished designing. If they finish designing, I will finish testing. So if you want to finish your work, you are dependent on some other work which they are supposed to finish. That is called finish to finish. These three are very much used in project management planning. But there is one more activity called start to finish, very rarely used. Okay. Successor activity cannot finish until a predecessor activity has started. It means the successor activity should finish for the predecessor activity to begin. For example, when will you finish your duty? You are in support. You are supporting. You are working in a shift. When will you finish your duty? Till you get the reliever. You cannot finish your duty unless your reliever starts the work. After you, the reliever will come. He should start his work, then only you will finish your duty. If he doesn't turn up and if you don't start his work, you cannot finish your duty. That is start to finish. So precedence diagramming method, 4 types: finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, start to finish. I'm giving you 1 minute time by hand. Very important. Okay. Can anyone tell what are the precedence diagramming method logical relationship between the activities? For logical relationship among the activities.
Start to finish, start to start, finish to finish, finish to start.
Perfect. Perfect. Now, let us go back to our tools and techniques. We have seen the precedence diagramming method and dependency determination. Remember, in project activities, when you are doing the project activities, there are a lot of dependencies. Like to start some activity, you may need government permission, government regulation. So there is some dependency on the government. Such type of dependencies which are external to your project are called external dependencies. You have nothing to do with your project. The government has to approve that. So that is called external dependency. Certain dependencies are mandatory. Certain dependencies are left to your discretion. Mandatory dependencies are the dependencies which are very mandatory. Like without getting approval, the plan approval from the municipal corporation, you cannot start your house. You can't start an activity called house construction. So it's a mandatory dependency. So basically there are four types of dependencies. Mandatory dependencies. In PMBOK 4 it's only 3. Now it's 4. Mandatory dependency, discretionary dependency, external dependencies, internal dependencies. What are the four? Mandatory. This is also very important for the examination. Mandatory, discretionary, external, and internal. I'll put it in the chat. Mandatory dependencies, discretionary, that is discretionary or left to your discretion. It's not mandatory, but external, so these are the four types of dependencies. As I told you, mandatory dependencies are sometimes legal, contractual, okay, or inherent in the nature of the work. These are called the mandatory dependency. As I told you, foundation and superstructure. If you want to raise the superstructure, it's mandatory that you have to finish the foundation. There is some dependency on that. Okay, that is mandatory. Discretion. If you want to wait for that activity to be finished, you wait, or else not. It's left to your discretion. And discretionary dependencies, there are three other names related to discretionary dependencies. They are called preferred logic, preferential logic, or soft logic. Preferred logic, preferential logic, or soft logic. These are three names for discretionary. Other names, I told you have to remember these other names also. In the examination, they may say following, you are dependent on one activity to finish the other activity. This is called preferential logic. I mean, they may not give saying discretionary dependency. So you got to know, make a note, and you have to by heart these things. External dependency. It's out of your project. If you are dependent on something, it's called external dependency. So these dependencies are usually outside the project team's control. Okay. Sometimes you are dependent on hardware supplier. Dell has to supply you the hardware. You are dependent on that. So it's an external dependency. Unless Dell gives the hardware or Intel gives you the supercomputer what you are looking at, you cannot run the project. It's called external dependency. Internal dependencies. Your dependency is within the project. Okay. Team has to finish assembling in order to start your project. Assembling a computer or assembling some equipment. They have to finish. So it's an internal dependency. Okay, so as a project management team, as a project manager, you have to decide on what are the dependencies you have in the project. And then when you are sequencing the activities, you have to look into the leads and lags. Very important, leads and lags. So what are the leads and lags in the project? A lead is amount of time whereby a successor activity can be advanced with respect to a predecessor activity. Okay, in the sense, how early can you start activity B when you are doing activity A? For example, you take 6 days to finish the design. After finishing the design, you will start the successor activity called testing. You need not wait for the entire design to be finished. If 20% of the design is finished or 50% of the design is finished, you can start doing it. It means parallelly in advance you do it. So though the activity A takes 6 days, you can start testing on 5th day itself. So if you are starting on 5th day, 5th and 6th, you will have 2 days lead. 2 days lead. So in an activity which is taking 6 days, you have started activity B on 5th day. A is taking 6 days. B you have started on 5th day. So 2 days is the lead time. Lag is waiting time. Like after foundation I told you have to wait for 10 days. Till that time you cannot start any other activity. Then it's called lag time. Lag time. So this is leads and lags. So lead is the amount of time where you can advance your successor activity called activity B. How early you can start when it compared to activity A. A lag is the waiting time, the delay time with respect to the predecessor activity. So what are the outputs you get? You get project schedule network diagram. Project schedule network diagram, though the name is very fancy, it is nothing but you will sequence A, B, C, D, This is a network diagram. I will show you the network diagram. This is the network diagram. Start of the project. On the extreme left you see the start of the project. Project activity A, C, F, G. They are all not dependent. Everything they start. After activity A, do B. Activity C, D, E. After F and G, you do activity H. H is dependent on 2 activities, F and G. Once you finish F and G, then only you can start H. So you will build a network of all your activities like this. You will sequence the activities like this. This diagram is called project schedule network diagram. In Microsoft Project Plan, the moment you you put all the activities and you sequence them, automatically these softwares will produce you these network diagrams. It will be very easy for you to understand if you see a network diagram how your project is doing, after what activity you are supposed to do the other activity. You will be having a clear picture if you do this networking diagram. So these are this is the output you get. Schedule project schedule network diagrams, and project document updates. No, you will get some, you will go and update some documents in the project in sequence activities. Okay, and now the fourth one, we'll see estimate activity resources. So what are the 7 processes in schedule management? The first one is plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity resources, estimate activity durations, develop schedule, control schedule. These are the different processes. So we have done with plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities. Once you have sequenced activities like what we have shown in the earlier slide, the network diagram, now you will estimate how many resources are required to complete this activity. What resources are required to complete these activities. So what do you do in estimate activity resources? You will identify the type and quantity of resources needed to accomplish the activities. What type of resources are required? It may not be human resources only. Yes, human resources are required. If you see the diagram, the slide, you are on the left side you are seeing human resources, on the right side you are seeing the equipment, tools. Depending upon the resources that are available in your project, the estimations will change. For example, you are having a bulldozer in your project. Then the activity called digging the ground, it will take less number of hours or less time. If you don't have an equipment, you have to do it manually with a crowbar. Then duration will be more. So what are the resources available with me? Hey, I don't have people here. I have only 5 people. So what are the resources available? I have only 5 developers. I have only 1 tester. So for each activity, what are the resources you have? You identify. How many will be required? You identify. And depending upon the skill of the resources also, your project will delay. My team member is not so skilled. He will take 8 days. My team member is very skilled. He can do the same activity in 2 days. So your duration for an activity depends upon all these factors. So do you do an estimation? You are in estimate activities, the definition of estimate activity resources is the process of estimating the type and quantities of material, human resources, equipment required to perform each activity. Okay. So, but financial resources you don't do it here. We'll do it at cost management. Okay. You may say financial resources are also resources. Yes. But we don't do it at this moment. So, for the name itself, it will suggest. Don't worry, don't get confused with the name. The name clearly says the resources required to do an activity. You are estimating now. So, what resources you require to do an activity is estimate activity resources. Okay. So, basically, to do this particular process, what do you need? You need schedule management plan. In schedule management plan, you'll have a information. How are you going to do the estimation? Who is going to do the estimation? When are you going to do the estimation? The level of accuracy of each estimation, that is also very important. What is the level of accuracy you are estimating? If someone says, this activity will take 9 days, how confident are you? What is the level of accuracy you are talking about? I am very confident. 10 out of 10 times I will do it in time. So, in schedule management plan, plus or minus 10%, plus or minus 20%. What is the accuracy level? Plus or minus 50%. You are very unsure. So that will be there in the schedule management plan. And of course, you need the activity list. You need activity attributes, resource calendars. The availability of the resources. Resource calendars are basically the availability of resources. You are thinking that this resource will be, you require a bulldozer to do this activity and you have estimated. But unfortunately, this bulldozer is booked for the next 1 year. You are not aware about this information. Where you will be? Your estimations will go for a toss. Bulldozer is not available. You have to do it manually. So the calendar when the resources are booked, like your room booking, no, in your office you will book all your meeting rooms. The same calendar related to the resource availability you should have. Then only you will estimate. Okay, bulldozer is available, then your estimation is different. If bulldozer is not available, your estimation is different now. So resource calendars, the availability of your equipment, human resources, and you need risk register. For risks, risk register is the document which is an output of identify risk process in risk management knowledge area. In risk register, you list out all the risks that you have identified in the project. For risks, you have to give some buffer. What if this happens? What if that happens? You have to have a contingency. So when you are estimating, this risk register will really help you. Risks related to the availability of the resources will be there in the risk register. Activity cost estimates. This is the output of cost management. You will use it here. Okay. Activity cost estimates, you may use it because the cost of the resource may impact resource selection. A bulldozer is very costly. Better we do it manually. Based on that, you have selected the resource. What are you going to use in the project? Sometimes based on the cost also we'll select the resource required for the project. That is activity cost estimates. And then the EEFs and OPA. Then the tools and techniques. Basically what tools and techniques you require. Expert judgment, subject matter expertise you may require. And alternative analysis. For doing an activity you have 2-3 approaches. Plan A, plan B. So you have to look into alternative analysis also. To reach out a particular place, you have 2-3 ways, no, 2-3 roads where you can reach. So all the alternative methods of accomplishment, how are you going to do that? And then published estimation data. Published estimation data means for certain activities, you have some published data which is available in some website or with some organization or some books. They'll give how much time it will take. Published estimation data. For example, you have not done testing of SAP software earlier. First time you are doing. How much time testing of SAP software typically it takes? How do you know? You are doing for the first time. So somewhere you will go and Google. Somewhere they will publish this type of data, like your Gartners, Foresters. These are the companies. Normally they publish lot of information. They gather lot of information. You know this Gartner. There's a company called Gartner. I will type it here. Forrester. So these companies, they publish lot of data. They sell the data actually. Suppose you are starting a particular company, you want to know what is the potential for this business in Europe. How do you know how much turnover you can do? What is the demand? So they will publish this data. So you can get in anywhere, wherever, if you want to know what will be the schedules related to a particular thing, is you can get it from Google. Somewhere they will publish. You can use that. Bottom up estimating, important. Okay. Bottom up estimation is sometimes you will not be able to estimate activity. Then you will further subdivide this activity and then you will sum up. So from bottom you will go to top. that is called bottom up estimations. You are not confident. I will ask you how much time it will take to reach from New York to Washington. The moment if I ask, you may not tell with confidence how much time you will take. Okay. Now you will divide the travel into smaller chunks. Okay, from here, from New York to this place, 1 hour. From there to there, 20 minutes. From there to there, 40 minutes. So it will take 4 hours from here. So at a higher level, you may not be able to estimate an activity, how much time it will take. So when you are not confident, when you are not able to estimate, you further break down, subdivide that activity into smaller chunks. Then you do estimation from bottom. So from bottom to top you are doing the estimation. So it's called bottom up estimation. If it is from top to bottom, it's called top down approach, top down estimation. Here you use bottom up estimation. And for doing these estimations, you can use some softwares. And this project management software, though they explicitly mentioned here, this holds good everywhere. You can use softwares everywhere except for wisdom. When you are taking decision, unfortunately, artificial intelligence has not evolved into the world completely. So except for decision making, you can use software anywhere. Don't think that project management software or some software is not mentioned in some other process as a tool or technique, but it will be used. What are the outputs you get? Activity resource requirements. For each activity, what are the resources required? As the name suggests, resource required for each activity. One minute. Yeah. Resource required for each activity. These are the resources required for this activity. Activity called design. For designing, I need this tool. I need 2 people. I need a printer. These are the resources that are required to do an activity called designing a software. And you can do a RBS. RBS is resource breakdown structure. A resource breakdown structure is like an org breakdown structure. Okay. It's a hierarchical representation of resources by category and type. So what are the resources required? Now you will list like this. Resources required for this project. What are the resources required? Different categories you will develop a structure. Labor, resource. Material, one resource. Equipment, other resource. Now under labor. So now after doing your estimate activity resources, whatever the resources you have listed, you will put it. Labor, I need a team lead. I need 2 .NET developers. I need 6 testers. Equipment, I need Microsoft MS Office license. So you list it. So now it will be, now this list will be ready like this. This entire hierarchy, no, like this. This is related to the resources. This is related to the resources what you have planned in the project. So you'll have this resource breakdown structure, RBS. We call it as RBS. That is resource breakdown structure. So whatever the estimations you have made, you can build like a tree now, like branches like this. You can divide. This you will use it at a later stage for a different, some other purposes, resource breakdown structure for some estimations, or you want to book some equipment. What equipment I have to book, I have to buy. You will understand from this. And you may go and doing some project document updates. Okay. So this is estimate activity resources. So what are the process we have covered till now? Plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, and estimate activity resources. So I will stop here, and tomorrow the rest of the three process: estimate activity duration. For each activity, how much duration it will take, you will do. Then develop schedule. Tomorrow's class, don't miss the class. Very, very important, because we'll discuss about a technique called critical path. We'll be doing some exercises on that. At least 3 to 4 questions. It depends again. 3 to 4 questions, a minimum of 3 to 4 questions you will get on critical path. Minimum. Sometimes you may get 7 or 8 also. So very important. Don't miss the class tomorrow. And I will give you many exercises on this critical path, because it is critical for the examination. Many exercises I will give you. It should be on your fingertips, as simple as that. Now, any questions?